81-year-old Kenny Baker, best known as the man within R2-D2, passed away on Saturday following a persistent illness. Baker started his performing career in 1950 at the age of 16. He worked as a DJ, a clown, an ice performer, and a musical comedian before taking on the role of the famous robot that helped launch his film career. Due to his condition, Baker was not expected to live beyond puberty. Instead, the 3'8" British actor defied all odds, earning a spot on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, getting married and fathering 2 children, and living to a ripe old age before passing peacefully in his sleep. We should all be so lucky. Star Wars may never be the same, but the show must go on. This week, during a particular sporting event in Rio, Lucasfilm released the story trailer for Star Wars Rogue One. The trailer gives you the briefest summary of the characters that'll take on the Death Star. However, the Star Wars website features some more in-depth information. Of course, we have Jyn Erso, the rebel without a cause, until she gets a cause. Captain Cassian Andor, the respectable rebel commander. K2SO, a reprogrammed killbot, clearly looking to edge in on HK-47's territory.
The captain says you are a friend. I will not kill you.
Saw Gerrera, a Clone War veteran who has seen too much. Bodhi Rook, the designated warrior of the group. Chirrut Emu, the blind, not quite a Jedi warrior monk. And Baze Malbus, the wild-eyed native full of bravado and violence. Standing in their way is director Orson Krennic, your typical Imperial tyrant type, and possibly a certain other antagonist will cause problems too. In TV news, Hulu quietly announced the impending end of their free streaming service this week. Hulu told The Hollywood Reporter this week that it'll be moving away from its ad-supported free option and move exclusively to a subscription model, a drastic shift for a website that built itself as a free alternative to regular television. But while Hulu itself is moving behind the paywall, a new option is taking its place. At the same time Hulu announced its changes, Yahoo launched Yahoo View, a free service that'll feature most of Hulu's formerly free content, including the last 5 episodes of ABC, NBC, and Fox program, released 8 days after their broadcast. The only notable omissions are shows from the CW, which signed an exclusive agreement with Netflix earlier this year. Over in video games, it's either been a good week for Nintendo-themed fan games or a really bad one, depending on your point of view. The last weekend saw the release of AM2R, short for Another Metroid 2 Remake, a fan-made remake of Metroid 2 The Return of Samus. The project was developed by Milton Gausti, an Argentinian Metroid fan who started working on the game as far back as 2005. Recreating the game took more than a decade, but on Saturday, June 6th, all of Gustai's work came to fruition. The game took the internet by storm all weekend, but on Monday when the lawyers came back to the office, Nintendo issued DMCA notices on Project AM2R's download hosts. Gustai no longer hosts the game on his blog, but he holds no ill will towards Nintendo. When he started his blog, he was a sound technician with a love of games, but today he says he's making a living as a programmer based on what he's learned over the course of the project, and is satisfied with the reception the game has gotten. However, AM2R wasn't the only fan game to make waves this week. Pokemon Uranium also saw its long-awaited release on Saturday. Developed by a 2-man team over the course of 9 years using RPG Maker XP, Pokemon Uranium created a new world of Pokemon with an original story and a large roster of original monsters. Pokemon Uranium lasted longer than AM2R did, but after 1.5 million downloads, Nintendo sent out DMCA claims against them as well, and Team Uranium took down their official download links. It should be noted that, unlike many of Nintendo's applications of DMCA claims, this time Nintendo was completely in their rights to tell these creators to not distribute unauthorized work based on their properties. But it should also be noted that, with both games now in the wild, anybody that wants to play them will have no difficulty doing so, even if the official download link is gone. Moving on to new releases, coming out in theaters this week we have Kubo and the Two Strings. The latest from Studio Lakia, who brought us Coraline, Paranorman, and the Box Trolls, Kubo and the Two Strings tells us the story of a magical boy battling gods and monsters to avenge his father. It looks pretty awesome. Next up, Ben-Hur. In order to take vengeance on his brother for the death of his family, Ben-Hur takes the advice of Morgan Freeman and becomes a chariot racer. So wait, is Morgan Freeman still God in this movie? Oh well, we also have War Dog. Did you know that you wanted to watch a movie about Jonah Hill and Miles Teller playing a couple of clueless arms dealers? Yeah, I didn't either, but here we are. And finally, Kingsglaive, Final Fantasy XV. The multimedia onslaught of the Final Fantasy XV franchise continues with the CGI feature film. Will it be good? Will it be bad? Who knows, but it sure looks fun to look at. And speaking of video games hitting PC this week, there's Conception 2: Children of the Seven Stars. What can you say about a dungeon crawler dating sim that starts its description with, "It's time for class mating"? In this game, monsters have invaded your world, and its only hope rests with you breeding with 7 different anime girls. Apparently your star children can grow up to be one of 30 different classes, so have at it. Next up, Typo Man Revised, a 2D puzzle platformer that looks like Limbo got attacked by a dictionary, and has a pretty neat gimmick and a really cool aesthetic, so it might be worth a look. And speaking of word games, Super Markup Man looks like a fun little way to brush up on your HTML skills. Going retro for this week, there's Blasting Agent Ultimate Edition. Sure, it looks like a game you might have played on DOS back in the day, but it looks like a really good game you might have played on DOS back in the day. For something a little bit more modern, The Girl and the Robot appears to be an interesting take on the Zelda-style adventure formula, switching roles between a young girl and her robot bodyguard. And finally, Zombie City Defense 2, a simulation game that tasks you with protecting what remains of civilization from the undead menace by any means necessary, from flamethrower infantry to nuclear airstrikes. Oh, and I guess there's Metroid Prime Freedom Force on the 3DS, but if you're looking for your Metroid fix, well, you know what to do. Finishing up with this week's CGBros video, we have Mezcaliente by Esma, a cautionary tale of what happens when masculine contests get a bit out of hand. And finally, for this week's awesome video, how about just a solid 5 minutes of game ranks gushing over Final Fantasy VII?
You didn't wake up in a bed to mom's call like many other JRPGs because you'd slept in and the pie was ready. You were a mercenary, and on top of that, you were getting paid to be an eco-terrorist. You were literally doing something most people would never do to an enemy that most people would not look at and say drastic measures need to be taken.
That's everything for this week, so what do you think about these fan-made video games? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to like and subscribe, maybe pass this video around to your friends, and have a great week.